you all are joining us in this webinar tonight. My name is Tori Prohl, and I'm here with Trina Hanner, and we work for One Ascent Financial Services, and we will be your presenters tonight. The reason we've started sharing these webinars this year is really to just expand our reach and to help educate as many people as possible regarding sound biblical money principles. If this is the first webinar you've been able to attend, we want to especially welcome you. If you'd like to view some of our previous ones, please reach out to our office and we'd be happy to send you the links. As a quick review, the March webinar was all about Social Security. In April, we taught biblical money principles that apply no matter where you are in life. And we're actually going to be expanding upon that concept tonight. And back in May, we discussed the biggest mistake people make with their money. Again, if you'd like to view any of those, please let us know and we will be happy to send you the recording. You can call our office at 812-358-8477. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. First, everyone watching is muted and your cameras are off. So if you're in your pajamas tonight, we can't see you. It's okay. You're not able to change either of those settings, but if you have something to say or if you have a question, we encourage you to use the chat box and the Q&A box on Zoom. We're going to be watching these boxes during the webinar, and we will have time to answer questions at the end. So to practice with the chat box, I want to do a little icebreaker. If you're on right now, if you're participating live, I'd like you to go into that chat box and let us know from where you're watching. City and state are fine. I don't need to know your address, just city and state. And this will be a fun way just to see how big our reach is. And if you're in Florida, we're praying specifically for your safety tonight. Also, at the end of the webinar, you'll be prompted to answer a 2-question survey. We encourage you to fill this out so we can better our webinars for the future. Also, we are encouraging participation tonight with the use of polls. When it's time to participate in a poll, it will pop up on your screen and you'll be able to select your appropriate answer. And as a reminder, all poll results are completely anonymous. Similar to our last webinar, we'll be guiding you through a few discussion questions tonight. I'd encourage you to grab, a scrap sheet of paper or pull up the notes on your phone or grab a notebook or the back of a receipt or something quickly so you can participate during this webinar. We'll put the questions on the screen and we'll have a few minutes of just quiet reflection time to answer them. You'll know when it's happening, I promise. So let's see here if anyone is letting us know where you're from. Any chat answers here? Q&A. I'm not seeing any. Trina, do you see any on your end?
I don't. They're quiet today.
All right. Well, this is part 1 of a 4-week series entitled Simplifying the Money Conversation, the 4 H's of Financial Wisdom. And this was written by Ron Blue. So I want to kick us off tonight with our first poll, just to get us warmed up. When you think about money, which word do you gravitate towards? Confidence, conflict, exposure, shame, excitement, and anxiety. I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. Should be up on your screen now. As a reminder, all these polls are completely anonymous. When you think about money, which word do you gravitate toward? Confidence, conflict, exposure, shame, excitement, and anxiety. You can just simply click the answer that best describes your feeling towards money. There's obviously no wrong choice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. If I can get my mouse to work. There we go. Go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Can everybody see the results on your screen? So it looks like everyone tonight so far has answered confident, which is great. So when we think about money, we might have questions such as these. How can I understand finances better? How can I successfully face, oh no, the poll is going crazy. How can I successfully face financial challenges and meet financial goals? How can I communicate effectively about money with those I love? Ultimately, we want you to handle money from a confident place, empowered by biblical financial wisdom. That's easy enough, right? We know this isn't a small task. In fact, when the word money comes up, most of us can probably agree that words like those we saw on our poll, such as conflict, exposure, shame, and loss of control, immediately come to mind. Those fears are real. Financial conversations take you to places that require courage and deep honesty, and those places can be uncomfortable. The beauty of having an honest money conversation is that you open yourself up to profound change that yields both financial and heart level freedom. So during this 4-week series, we're going to look at a framework for thinking differently about money. We're going to turn to the Bible for help, since it speaks authoritatively, timelessly, and simply to all financial planning and decision making. In fact, biblical financial wisdom is profoundly simple, and it works. Pursuing biblical financial wisdom will lead to firmer footing for both your money and your heart. We're going to explore the 4 key elements of financial confidence. You can see those to the right on your screen. Those are heart, health, habits, and hope. These simple elements unlock a foundational framework, empowering a lifetime of excellent financial decisions. These 4 elements, or the 4 H's, as we're calling them, are like the 4 corners of a puzzle. They provide the framework for thinking, acting, and communicating. These 4 corners will never change. They're not only the starting point, but will always provide the framework for biblical financial management. As we said earlier, this webinar is part of a 4-week series, and our outline for the next few weeks is here on your screen. But before we jump in, let's take a minute and do a very brief introduction to each element. The first element we'll be discussing is the heart. That's what we're covering tonight. We believe behavior follows belief. So in order to feel confident about money principles, we need to turn inwards and look at our heart. In this element, we'll learn 4 biblical perspectives that provide a solid foundation for every financial decision. These perspectives include stewardship, contentment, faith, and wisdom. And again, this is what we are going to be covering tonight. Excuse me. The second element we'll be covering is health, during which we'll use a simple tool to reveal your current financial reality and to identify how well it is aligned with your desired financial situation. We discussed this in depth earlier this year during our April webinar. But as a brief intro, there are only 5 things we can do with money, and they are all competing priorities. The 5 uses of money include live, give, owe, both taxes and debt, and grow. We know that God owns it all, and God's word speaks to each of these uses. And we'll look at them more closely during week 2 of this series. Next, we have our habits. During this week, we'll look at 5 financial principles that, when applied consistently, help you become financially stronger. These financial principles include giving generously, avoiding the use of debt, setting long-term goals, planning for financial margin, and right in the middle, we have spending less than you earn. We'll touch on these elements during week 3 of our series. And the last element is hope, which helps us confidently determine our next steps by setting faith in financial goals aligning our financial future with God's kingdom purposes. We believe changing habits to increase margin is the only way to meet long-term goals and to align our hearts and hope toward eternity. Without margin, it's difficult to respond to God's calling on our lives and to meet the needs of those He has put in our lives. This range of margin includes, on the bottom left there, struggling, not being able to make ends meet, surviving, which is living paycheck to paycheck, being stable, so saving some with an emergency fund, secure, saving for long-term goals, and surplus, which is having more than enough. Again, this last element will be covered in week 4 of this series. So I want to launch a second poll before we jump in here. After a very brief description of the 4H elements we'll be covering during this series, which element are you most excited to learn about? Let me go ahead and launch this here. Hopefully you can see this on your screen. Which one are you most excited to learn about? And we know that you don't know much about it. So again, there's no wrong answer, and these are completely anonymous. Your heart, your health, your habits, and your hope. Give it another minute or two. Which element are you most excited to learn more about? Heart, health, habits, and hope. I'm ending the poll and sharing the results. So it looks like we're got some people interested in health and also in habits. So be sure to come back for weeks 2 and 3. Go ahead and stop sharing here. All right. We've taken a look at the results. So Trina, what do you have for us tonight?
All right. Well, we're going to jump right into the heart. So all money issues are heart issues. I'm going to say that again. All money issues are heart issues. Is that as impactful for you as it is for me? As Tori said earlier, behavior follows belief. So we're going to deal with the heart first. Matthew 6:21 says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. In other words, let me see your checkbook or your bank statement, and I can easily and quickly see where your priorities are. The truth is, money decisions are just ancillary evidence of what's going on in someone's heart at any given time. And there are 4 heart level perspectives that lead to peace of mind in a person's finances, no matter how big the paycheck or the financial decision. When your heart rests on these 4 perspectives, you're better able to make good financial decisions aligned with your priorities. And you can see the perspectives on the screen. There's stewardship, faith, contentment, and wisdom. So we're going to start with stewardship. We must adopt this regarding our money, this heart perspective, in order to experience true financial freedom and confidence. I'm sure everyone on the call wants to experience true financial freedom and confidence. This perspective comes from Psalm 24:1 and says, God owns it all, and I am a manager of his resources. So that perspective that God owns it all, and I am a manager of his resources is key. In the old-fashioned sense of the word, stewards were servants who cared for their master's homes, lands, and interests. And instead of holding money with a clenched fist, everyone clench your fist for me. A steward opens their hand to God. Now open your hand with me and recognizes that all money is God's to give or to take away. We're going to spend a few minutes doing a short activity. If you have your piece of paper that we asked you to grab earlier, go ahead and take that out. If you missed that announcement, just find any piece of paper that is around you. Or you can take a picture of the slide so you can spend some time later in reflection. We're going to set a timer and turn off our camera so that we can just spend a few minutes, just a couple minutes, really focusing on this activity. So let's take a few minutes to list some of the many resources that God has blessed you with and entrusted to your care. And then thank him for his provision and acknowledge his ownership. I'll see you back in a couple of minutes. Okay, if you're just joining us, we didn't go dark. Well, I guess we did intentionally. We are answering the question, what has God blessed you with and entrusted to your care? And then we're just spending some private time thanking him for that provision and acknowledging his ownership of that blessing. Thanks for taking time to do that, everybody. That's a good exercise for us to do in our quiet time periodically. We're going to move on and there we go. So God uses money in your life to shape you. And he shapes you. As he shapes you, you move forward toward greater faith, wisdom, and contentment. So as he's molding you, you're moving along on your journey. Everybody is in a different place in their journey, right? But acting as a steward, you exercise faith when you hold your finances with that open hand, allowing God to direct your decisions. Because God owns it all, every spending decision is a spiritual decision. Did you catch that? Because God owns it all, every spending decision is a spiritual decision. God's word is full of financial wisdom. He gives direction about far more than just tithe. He cares what you do with everything. Did you know there are over 2,300 Bible verses about money, and that 11 out of Jesus's 39 parables talk about money? Faithful stewards choose contentment, knowing that they are under the watchful care of their master. They rest in his provision, even when they face complicated financial decisions or assignments from him. Once you adopt a stewardship mentality, you are poised to go on an unforgettable adventure with God. The second heart perspective is faith. This perspective flows naturally from stewardship and means that you're holding your finances with an open hand, seeking God's direction in the deployment of your money. To begin to unpack this perspective, let's spend a few minutes answering the questions on the slide. They should help reveal the extent to which you live out your faith through your finances. So we're going to do another exercise here. I'm going to spend a couple minutes letting you grab a piece of paper and let's answer the questions here. What does it look like when I seek God's direction in my finances? Am I even in conversation with God about my money? Remember, every spiritual decision, every financial decision is a spiritual decision. And how have I experienced God as the ultimate provider in life? I'm going to have you spend just a couple minutes answering those questions, and we'll be right back. I hope you're enjoying this bonus time of just being able to rest and listen to what God has to say and thank Him for what He's given us and given you, and ask Him what He wants. We're going to move on now. James teaches us that faith without works is dead. Implementing faith into your financial management means regularly asking God, what would you have me do in this financial situation? And then moving forward in faith based on the answer, right? We have to follow whatever it is He's saying. So asking, listening, hearing Him, and then following. God's word gives you and me clear financial principles, but working those principles out in our reality of our situation depends on a dialogue with the Lord in which we as stewards actively trust Him to uniquely guide and direct our steps. As we walk by faith, seeking God's direction, God will sometimes use money as a test in our lives to sharpen us. The next perspective is wisdom. Having a wisdom perspective helps us walk confidently according to what God says in the Bible about money. In Scripture, God provides profoundly simple principles that reveal what good stewardship looks like. As you think about the role wisdom has played in your financial life so far, ask yourself these questions. When has wisdom guided a decision in my life? Where did I find that wisdom? Has a wise principle from the Bible ever meaningfully informed a decision I've made? 3 important questions. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to answer those as well. We'll be right back. Okay. Hopefully I can't see your faces or see if you're still working, but hopefully you've had an opportunity to answer those. So walking in wisdom simply means applying biblical wisdom to your decisions. When it comes to wisdom, it's very empowering to realize that financial wisdom is not complicated. By applying wise financial principles, you can know that you are doing all that you can, practically speaking, to ensure confidence in your financial future. When the financial storm inevitably comes, following God's wisdom enables you to look back without regret and know that you did your part, regardless of the outcome. And that's so important. Sometimes things don't turn out exactly like we had hoped that they would. But the real test is that we did our part, regardless of the outcome. So the fourth perspective of the heart is contentment, which is the culmination of applying the stewardship, faith, and wisdom perspective. Materialism tells us that we need more money and things to feel successful, secure, and significant. You don't have to go very far to see that and experience that with the TV commercials and radio, all of the media, even our Facebook feed, right? All the ads. It's actually the polar opposite and greatest foe of contentment. No matter the context, materialism is a greedy master, always driving you toward more and leaving you perpetually discontent in your pursuit of it. Materialism is a heart disease, not a wealth disease. The writer of Hebrews offers a straightforward antidote to materialism and paints a simple picture of how stewardship frees you from its clutches. Hebrews 13:5 reads, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" Ultimately, we can choose contentment right here and right now because we serve a master who is with us no matter our circumstances. Contentment puts us on firm footing right now, settling our financial anxiety about more so that we can make clear-headed and informed financial choices about our current financial reality. Let's consider these questions. What would it take for you to be content? Have you ever considered that it is actually possible to be content with what you already have? Not because it's enough, but because God is enough. So we're going to spend just a couple of minutes here answering these questions. I'm going to turn my video off and mute myself so that I'm not distracting to you, and we'll give you just a little bit of time here to answer these. So again, we're asking, what would it take for you to be content? And have you ever considered that it is actually possible to be content with what you already have? Not because it's enough, but because God is enough. Wow. Thought-provoking. So by acting as a steward who is choosing contentment, following wisdom, and seeking God by faith, you prepare your heart for any financial decision, storm, conflict, or blessing. When these 4 heart level perspectives are settled, you'll be able to make financial decisions without fear and with greater freedom and confidence. God uses money as a tool to shape you as you act as his steward. He uses money as a test to sharpen you as you seek his direction by faith. And he uses your money as a testimony to shine light in a dark world as you display contentment, trust, and wisdom to the world around you. When you are a content, wise, and faithful steward, you offer the light of Christ to friends and neighbors. Ron Blue talks all the time about tool, test, and testimony. Money can be a tool, it can be a test, and a testimony. So that wraps up the core of our first element, the heart. All money issues are heart issues. During our session, we covered 4 perspectives that our hearts rest on: stewardship, faith, wisdom, and contentment. We hope you learned about your own heart tonight and can spend additional time on the discussion questions as needed. I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A box. Feel free to type those, though, if you do have a question about this session or future sessions or anything else. And I want you to know about some other resources. If you go to this website, ronblueinstitute.com, and do a /4H, it's 4 H's. You will find some additional resources. You can do a self-assessment there on this subject. And then also Ron's son, Michael, has done a devotional that's actually a 7-chapter book or Bible study on this topic as well. And you'll find that there. And he also has done some sessions on this that are recorded. So you can hear his perspective on these topics as well. So we hope that you've learned about your own heart and can spend some additional time on this, on the discussion questions as needed. And just as a reminder, there is a workbook that is associated with this. And so that can be purchased on this website as well. It's called Simplifying the Money Conversation. I'm not seeing any questions. So we hope you're going to join us next time. We're going to talk about the second element, health. It looks like there was some interest in that. So our financial health, it's a little more practical, than talking about the heart. We'll get into some numbers, but really just perspectives that it simplifies things so much to know. There are just really 4 ways to use money. So as a reminder, you'll receive a short 2-question survey at the end of this Zoom meeting, and we encourage you to provide any feedback at all so that we can better our webinars and presentations, because these are for you, and we want to be able to serve you the best way that we can. So thanks so much for participating tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. And we will visit with you next week.